By the time this video comes out, I turn 24 years old. And if you're thinking, well, there's nothing really special about turning 24, you're right. It's probably better than 23, but I feel like after 21, the excitement of being another year older kind of tends to wear down a bit. But because my birthday happens to coincide with an upload date, I thought it'd be fun to do a little 24 lessons for 24 years, mainly for two reasons. Because one, I feel like there are a lot of female YouTubers that do this, but not a lot of guys. And, I feel like this kind of video can be done by both sexes or really any gender. But B, I just kind of wanted to do one. So these 24 lessons are going to be about business, life, relationships, etc. So here we go. 1, you are the most invested in your own success. No one will ever be as invested or should be as invested in your own success as much as you. Let's say you wanted to start a new business or you want to create a YouTube channel. No one's going to tell you to upload weekly, or no one's going to tell you to get up and film and edit and do the work. This has to be a result of your self-discipline and consistent habits that you've built up as a person over the years. And it shouldn't come as a shock when I say that no one else is going to do their life for you. So when you're determining the direction of your life, what you want to do with your life, make sure that you have a say in it. Are you doing things because you actually want to do them, or do you feel like you are pressured to do them? But on that wavelength comes lesson number 2. You don't have to do it alone. The idea of being self-made, I think, is kind of a myth now. And even if you look up to the greatest CEOs or the greatest Olympians or anyone who is number one in their crafts, yes, they have dedicated hours and hours of work into perfecting or getting better at what they do. But they always have some level of support along the way. So a CEO, for example, he's not actually doing all of the work. He might have a team with him, employees doing all the grunt work and people helping him out, even if it's friends and family giving moral support. Same thing goes for an Olympic athlete. Whenever you hear those interviews on what they would like to say about their past result or their performance, usually they'll say, "I'd like to thank my friends and my family for their support." And that's kind of a testament to how you aren't supposed to do everything alone. And the idea of independence is kind of false. Like, yes, you have to be independent in your own way and be able to self-regulate your emotions and things like that. But when it comes to actually being on this journey, you aren't actually alone. And you should remember that you have people that you can trust and you should trust, because that'll actually help you go farther. Number 3, everything is temporary. And I don't mean to say this in some sort of bleak way or existential crisis kind of way, but whatever feeling that you may be experiencing, it could be sadness or it could be happiness. Either way, those are feelings and they aren't facts. After a long enough period of time, even the strongest of feelings will fade. So if you are going through tough times, know that those will also pass and things will get better. Number 4, we are all meat suits. We can talk all about self-help and personal development and getting into the meaning of life and whatever we want, but if you wanted to simplify our existence as humans, you might realize that we are all just a bunch of meat suits floating on a rock in the middle of nowhere in space. And in some ways that is relieving to me. Partially because it kind of takes the pressure off when you are going through some major anxieties. I'm not talking about clinical, but just any worries or anxieties that you may have. You kind of realize how insignificant your problems can be sometimes. And this isn't me like trying to diminish your problems at all, and you should definitely seek help if you are having a tough time getting back up. But I'm saying this because we tend to forget that other people are human too. Whether it's a person that you dislike or a person that you idolize, like a celebrity, we all poop, pee, sleep, have our flaws, insecurities, and weaknesses. So when you are having trouble trying to get to know a person better, just know that they are actually a person. Number 5, take more pictures. This is something that I need to start working on a little more. I've come to realize that, of course, we in the moment wouldn't think that we would forget what's going on around us at that certain point in time. But years later, you would be able to look back on those photos, videos, or any sort of documentation that you have from that moment and only look fondly more often than not. And if you didn't take any photos or videos, you might not have those moments. Number 6, learn what to give an F about. As we grow older, we start to understand what's actually worth caring about, because as we're younger, we're still pretty fresh, pretty new to life, so everything almost seems novel. But as the bigger milestones pass, graduating college, graduating high school, having a new year occur, all of those things tend to lose a bit of its allure. But in some ways, this is a good thing, because in an age where information is always at our fingertips and trying to invade our personal space rent-free, it is good to have some sort of method to filter out all the noise that happens and just give you the ability to focus on what actually matters to you. Now, how do you figure out what's important to you? Well, I'd say that's kind of a big question, and that's something that you will have to figure out through your values and just the way you were raised, but that's for a whole other video. Number 7, the beginning is the hardest part of the journey. You might hear about developing new habits and how difficult they may be. Some say that it could take 22 days, but usually what happens is people will give up in the first 5 days or 3 days because it's so difficult to break out of their comfort zone. When you're trying to get into a consistent exercise routine, or whether you're trying to wake up earlier, I guarantee that trying to get back into a rhythm is way harder than actually just staying in that motion. It's almost like that physics law where objects in motion tend to stay in motion. So it's better to maintain habits of eating healthier and going to bed at a reasonable hour, drinking more water, because what will happen is if you consistently drop the habit, it will be much harder to pick back up. If you are able to go through those 22 days and overcome them, the effort that you do put in the beginning will eventually compound. And that leads me to lesson number 8, which is your life will mostly consist of everyday mundane activities. Our life isn't an Instagram feed, it's not a highlight reel. It will probably consist of you mainly looking at your phone all the time and doing all the little things that people would consider boring. But maybe that's why people have begun to see beauty in the everyday little things and starting to romanticize all these little activities in their lives. That's why That Girl exists. That's why main character energy exists. It's because it's a calling to become more present in the things that we do and just being intentional with the way we live our lives. Because we're not always going to go on vacation and we're not always going to hit every new milestone every day. There's merit to just enjoying the little things. Number 9, you are in the good old days. This is inspired by Andy from The Office, who in the last episode said that he wished he knew he was in the good old days before realizing that they were the good old days. Well, I'm here to tell you that the past month that you've been living, or the past few months, are good old days right now. They may not necessarily be good, but they will be something that you may reminisce on in the future. And one day you will be looking back on even the stupidest things, like eating lunch with your high school friends in the cafeteria or going to swim practice with your college mates. So instead of regretting the past or worrying about the future, know that the present is actually all that you have. If you are someone that feels like life is just slipping by through their fingers, then you need to catch yourself right now and be like, this present moment, I have this. I have today. What am I gonna do with it? Number 10, don't try to be amazing, Just try to be better than you were yesterday. When I was younger, I really wanted to be the best at swimming, but then I realized that there were people a lot taller than me, a lot bigger than me, just have spent a lot more time in the pool than me, and I had to accept the reality that that might not happen. That shouldn't deter you from actually going out and doing what you want and putting 120% effort into being the best version that you can be. But it's unfair to pit yourself against these people who were just given a bit more right at birth. So to define your own success, just try to be better than you were yesterday. Number 11, someday means never. If you want to learn how to cook someday, then chances are that you aren't going to ever learn how to cook. The word someday is just so vague and never actually implies that you will take any tangible action towards a specific goal. Instead of leaving something for someday, use today to figure out how to get yourself just one step closer to where you want to be. Make your someday start today. Number 12, wear sunscreen. Skin cancer is not a joke. Number 13, do the work before talking about it. When I was making this lesson, I thought about that guy who says he's going to be the best XYZ, and he was going to be famous and he was going to be the best in the world, and usually people will think of him as like a clown and he's full of BS. If you want people to actually start accrediting you, or if you want people to actually start believing you and the things that you say and the things that you claim to be, do it by letting your actions speak louder than your words. If you want to be a famous YouTuber, don't announce that you're going to be a famous YouTuber and just start posting videos, start filming. By focusing on action rather than your words, you come off as way less obnoxious and people will respect you more. Number 14, don't stress too much about grades. This isn't your excuse or your free pass to not try hard in school. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you should work hard on your education and your learning, but grades aren't the end all be all for your intelligence or your worth as a person. Grades were a pretty huge factor in my household growing up, and I was almost scared to get a bad grade because I couldn't bear to think what would happen if my parents had seen it. Looking back on it, having that B on a history exam or a C on an old math quiz really has no bearing to what I am today or the kind of work that I do now. So if school isn't necessarily your thing, that's alright, just don't be lazy. Number 15, don't underestimate the power of compound interest. That means understanding that your dollar bills should be working for you. Yes, 40 and 50-year-olds may have more money than you right now in your 20s, but probably the greatest resource or the greatest asset that they would be envious of us in our 20s is time. The longer we allow our money to grow in our investment or in the stock market, the greater the potential for the returns. Number 16, take responsibility. This is inspired by Stephen Covey's number 1 habit of 7 habits of highly effective people, but it really shaped the way of how I see the world. You need to take responsibility for your own actions, and you need to be accountable for your own life. While we cannot always control whatever happens around us, we can always control our narrative and the way we see things and the way we respond to them. It's literally our responsibility or our ability to respond. You may have some minor inconvenience happen to you, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the whole world is out to get you. Number 17, your job isn't worth your mental health. If your hours are 9 to 5, it's not worth stressing about after 5 p.m. I know it can be difficult, but try to clear your mind of work. Because what usually happens is an employer can replace any employee within a few days, but your loved ones can never replace you. Never sacrifice your mental health or time with friends and family, because you never know when it will be too late. Instead, find a role that rewards you based on the value or the outputs that you create, rather than the hours that you've worked. Number 18, just because you're buying something on sale, it doesn't mean you're actually saving money, unless you had intended to make the purchase prior. I like a good sale as much as anyone else, but if I wasn't planning to buy it in the first place, then you're still actually just spending money that you weren't supposed to spend money on. Number 19, make sure you get your vitamin D. There's a reason why seasonal depression is such a wide known thing, and why people would idolize living in a place like Hawaii or Costa Rica. Make sure you're prioritizing time to actually just spend time outside in the sun, and that'll increase your mood almost instantly. Number 20, try to avoid comparing yourself to others as much as possible. This is really easy to do on social media, but it's really unfair to you. You can put all the energy and sweat into doing something that you want to be better at, and there's always going to be someone better than you. Comparing yourself to others just discredits all of the work that you put in as a person, and just because you aren't an Olympic gold medalist, it doesn't mean that you don't have worth. Number 21. Change comes from within. That means you cannot change other people, and other people cannot change you. When is the last time you tried to convince someone to change a bad habit and that's worked out? It probably never has. 22. I don't know about you, but I feel that we should always feel free to jam out to some music that we like sometimes. Just listening to a song that you really like, whether it be Taylor Swift or any other artist, is just good for the soul. Number 23, never ignore your gut feeling. Your gut feeling is what your subconscious mind is telling you based on all of your past experiences in life. You aren't necessarily aware of it, but when you just know about something or someone, that's your gut saying something. Is it always right? No. But I didn't say to actually trust your gut, I just said to never ignore it. Because sometimes our gut can be wrong, and it can help to do a little extra research every now and then. Number 24 is to share your story. You might think you're unoriginal or that you're not special in any kind of way, but sometimes that's not actually a bad thing, because people might just want someone that they can relate with. But more oftentimes than not, there's never been anyone who's had the exact same life experiences as you. And you never know when the world can actually benefit from that. And now it's your turn, guys. I would love to hear a piece of advice that you would give to someone younger than you. And, if you made it to the end of this video, then thank you guys. It took a very long time to finish editing, but you're here, and I appreciate that. And now I'm going to enjoy the rest of my night, and you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take it easy.